Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Rishi Sunak is a rather controversial figure. No one in the party membership voted for him. No one in the parliamentary party voted for him. Indeed, the only previous vote for leader resulted in Liz Truss after the party unceremoniously dumped Boris Johnson, the only man who could have led them to victory. Well, it's going to be a bit of a worrying time. They being the party, the Conservative Party, are sort of falling behind in the polls. They are unlikely to form the next government. And of course, they're going to try and hold on as long as possible to try and turn around their fortunes. Unfortunately, they don't have an option about the next three by-elections. Three members of Parliament have been promoted, if you like, up to the Lords. And they're told they either have to take those seats or they can just rescind them. But they cannot wait until the next election. There is a time limit, which means if they want to be Lords, they have to go now. And that will lead to three by-elections, which the Tories have very little chance of winning, because both by-elections are notoriously anti-sitting government. And particularly this sitting government, which is unpopular both with its own members and with the country in general. Remember, Boris got a lot of Labour votes on his side because of his personal charm. That's something Rishi Sunak does not have. And so we'll look at this article to see why Rishi Sunak must be sitting there today, a very worried man, seeing possibly three defeats in a very, very short period of time, and then facing a possible outing. There are already mumblings of another leadership contest. To lose three by-elections, I think would make it almost certain. And if it went to a vote, Sunak is out. Let's look at this article and see how bad it is for him. So Rishi Sunak faces three by-elections in months after the House of Lords watchdog rules that MPs cannot wait until the general election to take their peerages. It would be constitutionally improper for serving MPs to take up the peerages. Well, you know, this is going to prove rather problematic for Rishi Sunak, as I say, because he will undoubtedly lose these by-elections. Because one of the things Rishi Sunak has to remember is, of course, at the last general election, the Tories did not win that election. They did very well. They formed the next government. They got a large majority. But it wasn't the Tories that won that election. It was, of course, Boris Johnson. People from Labour and Lib Dems both took him at his word. He asked them, trust him to deliver Brexit. They did. They gave him the vote, and they got him in with a now astounding majority. It will not be anything like that next time, because, of course, Rishi Sunak has no common touch. He has no charm. He has no kind of personality that people can like. I mean, don't get me wrong. Boris Johnson is an awful human being. He's fathered more children than even he knows. He's a serial adulterer. He's a liar. He's a massive con man. But he's eminently forgivable because of his... It's just Boris kind of... I don't know how you can put it. He has a veneer of the ignoramus. And the veneer of a nincompoop. But underneath, he's very, very clever and calculating. And he gets away with it. But Sunak does not have that. Sunak is undoubtedly clever. But he does not have that common touch. He is a multi-billionaire who sits in a bubble well away from people like you and me. He has no contact with normal people. And therefore he cannot charm those normal people. He cannot relate to those normal people. And that is why he is in deep trouble. He was even rejected, of course, by his own party. The own party members did not vote for Rishi Sunak because even they can't stomach him. And the sooner the leadership challenge comes, the better. However, we'll look at this because it's likely to come even quicker with what's going on. So Rishi Sunak has been warned he faces three daunting by-elections within months, as Tory MPs nominated for peerages will have to quit the Commons. The House of Lords Appointments Commission, which vets peerages, has reportedly ruled that those poised to join Parliament's upper chamber can't stay on as MPs. According to the Times, ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson has put forward Nigel Adams, Nadine Dorries, Alistair Jack and Sir Alok Sharma for seats in the Lords. This is his resignation honours list. He's allowed that. And so he's put his chummies up. I can see why a couple of them have gone. Can't see why a couple of them have gone, but that's up to him. It's his choice, his gift. But of course, now they have to make the decision. Do they want to accept it? They're under no obligation, of course, to accept it, but they probably will, because it's a job for life. It pays a good money. They don't actually have to do too much, and they get to put another title in front of their name. Anyway, it had been thought the proposed peerages for MPs, as part of Mr Johnson's resignation on his list, would see them stay in the Commons until the next general election before moving up to the Lords. But the newspaper reported on the Appointments Commission has told that the Cabinet Office that doing so would be constitutionally improper. It means MPs will have to quit the Commons if they want to take up the peerages, leaving Mr Sunak with the prospect of having to face a series of hotly contested by-elections just when the Conservatives are becoming their most unpopular for quite some time. So I think it'll be an absolute bloodbath come these by-elections. You're going to have some policy wonk, some faceless backbencher on local news going, oh well, yes, of course it is a bad night for the Tories, but we must look at the positive. And there is no positive, but they're going to have to try and put some spin on it anyway. Meanwhile, probably a Labour MP will be sitting there grinning like a Cheshire cat going, you know what, we got them on the run, and he'll be quite right. You can't take it away from them. With the Tories continuing to lag well behind Labour in the opinion polls, as well as suffering from a strong Liberal Democrat showing in the local elections, there is a chance the Prime Minister could be dealt a series of damaging defeats. Mr Johnson's resignation on his list is expected to be announced before Parliament's summer recess. I will say one other thing. Should Sunak decide he will go, it won't take him long to pack up his house and bugger off to America, because he never gave up his green card, and his wife is, of course, a foreign national as far as taxation goes, which is also another thing. So I think if he does go, we do need to get the next person in, Labour hopefully, who can do a retrospective clawback of all the tax that couple haven't paid for years and years and years. It will amount to hundreds of millions, hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of pounds that they haven't paid in tax, and we need to claw that back and give them a jail term, just to be double check on it, and remove her non-dom status, and tell him that if he keeps the green card, then he can no longer enter Britain ever again. And do things like that. That's all you need to do. You start taxing these bastards and see how they change, honestly. Anyway, Mr Johnson's resignation on this list is expected to be announced before the parliamentary summer recess, as I've just mentioned. It is convention that PMs wave through the honours list of their predecessors, while Mr Sunak is unlikely to want a peerage's row by attempting to block any nominations. But a source close to Sir Alok, who was president of the COP26 Climate Summit, said it was a totally hypothetical question as to whether he would be prepared to stand down as an MP to take up a peerage. But Mr Jack, the current Scotland Secretary, is said to want to stay on as an MP. He's going nowhere, a source close to the Cabinet Minister told the newspaper. It was reported that Nadine Dorries, the former Culture Secretary, and Mr Adams, a former Foreign Office Minister, are prepared to stand down as MPs in order to take up peerages, because why wouldn't you? Can't blame them. Someone offered it to me like a shot. I am not a hypocrite. I'm just telling you straight up, someone offered it, I would take it, simply because I would have a lot of fun disturbing the peace in the House of Lords. I would object to everything. They would hate me, and it would be fun. Anyway, meanwhile, David Frost, the former Brexit negotiator, is looking to make the opposite move by giving up his peerage in order to rejoin the Commons. The ex-cabinet minister has put his name on the list of Conservative candidates for the next general election, although he has not yet got a constituency even lined up. And it's not many who give up the Lords for the Commons. Notably, Tony Benn. Older viewers will remember what was Viscount Benn, I think at the time, gave up his peerage in order to become a commoner so that he could stand for the Labour Party. Now, don't get me wrong, he was an awful man, but he was a good parliamentarian, to be fair. But at least he wasn't a hypocrite. He put his money where his mouth was, and he went to the people, and the people voted him in. Anyway, Lord Frost said in a statement, "I am grateful for the party authorities for accepting my application as a potential Conservative candidate for the House of Commons, the centre of our national political life. I have not yet applied for any seat, and I am considering my next steps. Meanwhile, I look forward to campaigning for the party and for Conservative principles in the months to come." To be fair, somebody needs to. There hasn't been any Conservative principles for this government since Boris has gone, really. And even then, it was only hanging on a life support machine. There hasn't really been a proper Conservative government, I would suggest, since the bad old days of John Major. And God, he was terrible. Anyway, I shall round off here and come up. So yeah, 2 or 3 good bashings by the people on the Tory party. And it should see the momentum start to grow. The letters will be flying into the 1922 committee. And there'll be, I think they have to hit 20% or something, or 10%, whatever the figure is. They have to hit this number. And as soon as they hit that number, there'll be another leadership election. Sunak will undoubtedly lose it. He's not popular with the party. He's definitely not now popular even amongst the other MPs, especially on the sort of the Jacob Rees-Mogg front, who I think would make an excellent Prime Minister, because any YouTuber likes to have someone that it's easy to mock. And now, don't get me wrong, I've seen Jacob Rees-Mogg. He is actually a gentleman. We've got to give him this. He's certainly been well brought up. He's undoubtedly clever, he's very well spoken, and he thinks before he speaks. However, he's Jacob Rees-Mogg. He's just pure cannon fodder for anyone who wants to mock the Tories. There is no one more posh than Jacob Rees-Mogg. And here's a little true but wonderful story. When he first went on the campaign trail years and years and years ago, he was a young man. And he went on the campaign trail and he went around knocking on the doors of, common people. And of course he had to do this. He had to have someone to go with him. And he took his nanny. Now, I don't mean his grandmother. I meant that lady, that older lady. Think Mrs. Doubtfire. That older lady who would raise the children, think Maria from The Sound of Music. Or Mary Poppins. He went campaigning with his nanny. No, who would do that? Jacob Rees-Mogg. He would be comedy gold. I would love to see Jacob Rees-Mogg leading the Tories. It would be all my wet dreams. It really would. Anyway, that's enough of that. So Sunak is probably going to lose these elections. He'll have a fight on his hand. He'll be out, hopefully, by Christmas. It could all be over by Christmas, Then whoever comes in has got an election almost straight away, a general election almost straight away. They won't have time to bed in. They'll be out, and it'll be an abject lesson in how not to Tory, because you cannot get rid of the one man who saves you, Boris, and then expect everything to go well after that. Oh well, they'll learn. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that button. That's the subscribe button, and then ring the bell, and then leave a like, and then make a comment. But most of all, leave the like. They are the big ones for me. Until next time, stay safe, stay well. Let's just watch the Tory party implode together. Bring your popcorn, and goodbye.